So this question is a good example of why the Epic Online Store struggles. So this is saying, why instead of making games cheaper, why don't we just make distribution cheaper? Which is a reasonable thing. But so games are expensive because of the people, the human cost of making games. That's why everyone screams AI will save us. But AI, as I've demonstrated a bunch of times, isn't going to save us making games. Games are just not a good fit. But so we're left with then, why distribution cheaper? Well, in the Epic Online Store, it's free for the first $1 million. Why were they idiots and went on Steam? Because Steam has users. And what you're really paying on Steam for is those users, because that's built-in user acquisition cost. Think of it as free marketing, right? So you have 10 million to make the game, 1.2 million to market the game. If you weren't on Steam, you would probably have to have 5 million to market the game. That's crazy, right? You'd have half your development costs. Go look at mobile games. Mobile games, it's sometimes like 100 times is spent plus on marketing versus making the game. If you go to a mobile game convention, there's two things they talk about. User acquisition, which is what this is, and monetization. They don't give a damn about game design. They care about game design only in how it affects those two things. How does it affect user acquisition and how does it affect monetization? That's something I was talking about a few videos back about how I think there's a change happening on Steam as games get cheaper and cheaper. We're running into this problem on premium games as well. We have to hook people early on. I'm not going to do the monetization thing. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff. Like the rest of my life, I will just make games you can buy. But that's the problem, right? Is then user acquisition. And then you're competing, when you're talking about user acquisition, you're competing in a really, really competitive space. Because if you're going to take out Meta ads, if you're going to take out Reddit ads, or whatever you're going to take out your ads, you're going to be taking them out in the same space that Netflix is, that HBO is, that all kinds of stuff, right? It's crazy. Skin Deep. I saw an ad for that on Reddit. And I was like, oh, you must have a publisher. Or you're really hustling. But that's a really expensive place. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, dumbass, just go on Twitch. Because that's where the gamers are. Twitch doesn't work. Now, I know. You're going to talk to me about Slay the Spire and the one time that one guy played the game and that blew it up. Yeah, it works that way. But how they want it to work, it doesn't work. Where you pay a bunch of streamers to stream your game when it starts. And they get all excited about it. And they play it for whatever allocated hours you pay them to play it. And they never play it again. We've seen a really big name streamer recently do that with a game which he was actually involved with. And he still didn't play it. They don't change who they are because they care more about their constant revenue for whatever they're playing, be it Fortnite, PUBG, whatever, Rust. And they'll slowly move over to something and try it, right? Like if you follow Reed or Choco Taco, they're two streamers I follow, you'll see them try things for a while and they'll jump around, but they jump around inside a realm of games, right? And maybe they'll change. And I think Ark is a good example of something that really took off among streamers. Like the Super People game, like every streamer got paid to play that. Where's that game? You still have to have all these other things there. And you have to win those people over long term for that to be valuable. And that's super expensive. And I can list to you games that I know intimately of people who paid streamers who got that bump and then it never went anywhere, right? And Ark's an interesting game. I want to check it out, but I also want to wait. We'll see where it goes. It's got a good feel to it, watching videos. Because I watch streams. That's where I learn about some games. It's kind of, sometimes not really. I don't know. But yeah. So it's user acquisition costs. If we could get those down, which is impossible because you're competing against everybody else and nobody else cares. And if you find a way to get it down, you're just going to get it more competitive for that space, right? This is an arbitrage. The minute you find a solution, everyone else goes to it. And then for the actual distribution, right, the whole thing that happened with Apple now and the courts, and now people can have their own stores and stuff. We're going to see a bunch of fragmentation there because the Apple Store doesn't really have a lot of value to it and where it goes. And that'll be kind of be interesting to see how that plays out because that'll talk more to this problem. And at least I think for probably a lot of mobile games, they'll be able to do their in-app upgrade purchases. So places like Supercell and stuff will really benefit from this. But new indies, small people won't benefit from it nearly as much as they would from having an outlet that can give them focus and give them traffic. And that's what Steam does, and that's why Steam is worth the 30%. But Steam, if you want to do an experiment and take no percentage off my games from here on out and see how I do in comparison, I'm happy to do that experiment with you.